Hey guys, it's Neil again from Heart of Texas Armory, and today I want to bring you guys a video review of this really cool compressor style watch from Spinnaker. So this watch here, this is the Spinnaker Bradner, and the reference number here is SP-5057-01. And like I mentioned, what's really neat about this particular watch is it is styled after a compressor. So you do have the two crowns here. 2 o'clock crown here controls your internal bezel. You can see it in action right there. You can see how I'm rotating that pretty easily. And the second crown here at the 4 o'clock position controls your time, your date, and the winding of the watch. But this is definitely not a true compressor watch, because the construction of this is more like a traditional dive watch with like a screw down case back. But it is definitely cool. It has the vintage looks of a compressor watch, which I find very appealing. So another cool thing about this watch here is the price. So over at Spinnaker-watches.com, this brand new watch here you can pick up for $285. And I think that's a pretty good price for the specs that this particular watch has. But the good news is there are 20% coupon codes out there, and I have one here for you, and that code is OFD20, and that'll get you 20% off that $285 to get the price down to $228. And the OFD20, that stands for Aron Dunlap's channel, the OFD channel. So this particular watch here is one that's out on tour, and Aron sent it out to me, and I will be sending it out to a number of other channels. So definitely check the video description below for links to those channels. That way you can watch the video reviews of this watch, many other reviews, and also subscribe to their channels. So what we'll do first is we're going to talk about the specs, then we'll do a few talking points, and then close out the video review here with positives and negatives. So let's go ahead and get into the specs of this particular watch. Alright guys, here we go with the specs showing up on the left hand side of the screen for you guys. And the first point we'll talk about is the case diameter. So this watch does have a 42mm case diameter, which in my opinion is fairly large, but the good news is this watch does wear a little smaller than that 42, which suggests lug width here we're looking at 20mm, so probably the most common size, so you'll have no trouble finding straps, bands, or anything you wanted to replace the strap with. Lug to lug here we're looking at 50mm according to my measurement, which is a bit long in my opinion. However, if I rotate the watch here, you'll see those curved down lugs where they sweep down at a very aggressive angle, and that aids in the wearability of this watch. So it does wear a little smaller again than that spec would suggest. While we have the watch rotated, we'll talk about the thickness here. You're looking at 14mm for this watch, which is a bit thick, but not too bad. But this watch does have a domed sapphire crystal and a display case back. Both of those add to the thickness of this particular watch. Your weight on this watch is 90 grams or 3.2 ounces. So that's a pretty average weight for a watch in this size. The movement here is the Seiko NH35, which is probably the most common watch movement in this price point and also in the micro brand watch industry. The good news is the NH35 is reliable, it has good timekeeping, and it has some other features that are really nice, like the ability to hack. It has a 41-hour power reserve, and you're getting 21,600 beats per hour. So a good choice going with the NH35. Sapphire crystal here, which is always a positive, so it's going to be very scratch resistant, and it definitely looks good being domed. Look at that distortion effect right there. That is really nice. Water resistance on this particular watch is 150 meters, which, you know, it's certainly adequate, but I would have preferred it to be a little higher. But in all honesty, the 150 meters is going to work just fine for pretty much anything in the water, besides, you know, hardcore scuba diving. And the price point in warranty, you're looking at $285 at the Spinnaker website, and then you can apply that coupon code to get that price down to $228. And the warranty here, Spinnaker has a 2-year international warranty on this watch, which is nice. So that's a look at our specs. Let's slide the watch back over and talk about some of these highlights here of this particular watch. So on the case, you're looking at a 316L stainless steel construction. Very well done, very robust looking case. I really like that brushed finish on that middle section that contrasts the polished sections on the top and bottom. That is really nice looking. You do have a sign crown here at 4 o'clock, and of course this upper crown here controls the eternal bezel. The lower one controls your time set and date and winding. Now, speaking of the bezel, this is an internal rotating bezel. As you see, I'm rotating that crown there. The bezel is rotating, so very easy to set for timing anything. Easy to set back to 12 o'clock here, and you don't have to worry about alignment with this particular watch because you can adjust it forward or back infinitely. Now, the only thing I don't like about that particular mechanism is it is a bit loose in my opinion. It's not a locking crown, so this particular crown does not screw down. This one does. And, you know, that's something that you got to keep in mind. So during the day, this will be rubbing up against your wrist, or if you just hit it on something, it's going to, of course, move that internal crown or bezel really easy. So you're going to be constantly trying to adjust it. So it is nice. You don't have to worry about alignment. However, if you're OCD, you know, what's going to happen is that thing's going to get off just a little bit and you're going to be constantly adjusting it back to noon. I definitely would have preferred that to be locked down. But that's not too bad of a negative. It does have a sapphire crystal here, which we've already shown. Has some really cool distortion effects here being domed. I really like how that looks. Very nice. On the back here of the watch, we do have a mineral crystal display case back, so you can see into the watch to see it beating away, which is nice. And we do have a signed rotating rotor there. Spinnaker rotor, which looks really nice. Flipping the watch back over, we'll talk about the lume here. So you can see it kind of has a vintage look to it. So this is the, it's Super Luminova, which is always a positive, and it's their vintage style lume. So you should be seeing the lume shot pop up right now. The lume is pretty good. It's not, you know, crazy bright, but it does work. It's going to work throughout the night for you guys. Maybe after 2 or 3 hours, it's going to start fading pretty quick. But even after 8 hours, I was able to read the watch. It's just not the best lume I've seen, but it's certainly usable. Now your strap here, we do have a nice leather strap that's been treated to resist moisture. This particular one is red. They do have a bunch of other colors on their website. We do have a signed buckle here, Spinnaker. The strap works pretty good. It's well done. It's not the best quality leather, but it is nice. It's comfortable to wear. If I was going to keep this watch, you know, I probably would leave it on that. But anyways, it's pretty good for what it is. Now, let's go ahead and get this particular watch on the wrist, and we'll close this video review out. All right, guys, here we are with the watch on my 7-inch wrist. Wears really nice, as you can see. There's a look at it from the side so you can see how that 14 millimeter thickness looks. Again, you know, 42 millimeter case diameter, it's a bit large, but I'm certainly able to pull it off. I would say, you know, maybe from about 6 3/4 all the way up to 8 inches or bigger would be able to pull off this watch, no problem at all. But there you go, guys. There's a look at it on my wrist. Really cool looking watch. Look at that distortion on that dome sapphire. Really pretty. Really love the vintage looks of this particular watch. All right, guys, we're back to wrap this video review up. So let's go ahead and close out with the positives and negatives. So the first positive I will talk about is just the overall look of it. I really like the compressor style looks of it, the vintage feel that this watch has. That is definitely a huge positive. I'm also a big fan of that dome sapphire. That is nice. And also having the display case back is not a bad thing either. It does have that NH35 does keep time pretty accurately. You're going to look at around plus or minus 10 seconds typically. So fairly accurate on the timekeeping, which is good. And the last thing I'll mention here is the overall build quality. Spinnaker's been making these watches for the last couple of years, and it seems like everyone just seems to get better. And in my opinion, this is probably their finest watch to date. The build quality is just exceptional, from just that sapphire crystal to the nice case finishing to the just the overall design of it. It's just a well done watch, so that's a huge positive. Now on to the negatives. There's not a lot, but I do have a few here. The first one I'll mention is that 150 meter water resistance. I definitely would have preferred them just to bump that up to 200. I'm sure it's because of the display case back or something like that, or possibly this crown here. Most likely that's probably the actual reason. Being non-locking, they're not able to get that 200 meter water resistance, but 150 not bad, but I will mention that as a negative. The size too, that 42 millimeter case size, it is a bit large, so for some people it's just going to be a little bit too large for them to pull off. Would have been nice to see this in the 40 to 41 millimeter case size instead. And then this is not a true compressor style watch, like I mentioned. Would have been cool if they just went ahead and made this a true compressor. I know it would cost a little bit more money, but I think that would be super, super cool if that would have been the case. But again, this does look like one, and it is at a price point that's very affordable. The internal bezel here I'll mention too. It is very nice to use. You see me use it. It's not a problem to use. It works really good, but it is a bit loose, like I mentioned. You're definitely going to be bumping that. It's going to be rubbing on your wrist, and that bezel is going to be rotating. You're going to have to constantly be adjusting it back to 12 o'clock if that type of thing bothers you. And then the last thing here, the loom. The loom is good, but Spinnaker could have done a little bit better job on the loom. Some of the other models that are available may have better loom. The ones that don't have the vintage style Super Luminova, maybe those have better loom. But in this particular model, the loom is just average. So I'll mention that as a negative. But overall, it's a really cool watch. I love how it looks. It's just got a lot going for it for the price. So if you're interested in this watch at all, I definitely suggest you pick one up. Spinnaker's coming out with some fine timepieces here, guys. So overall, I'm going to give it a recommended. Definitely not one of my favorite watches, but it is a nice timepiece. So if you have any questions or comments on this watch, feel free to leave them down below. I'll do my best to answer those. Once again, this is Neil at Heart of Texas Army. Y'all guys take care. I'll catch you on the next one.